Home is supposed to be the safest place you know, the one spot where nothing from outside can reach you. But what if the danger was already inside all along? When I was 23, I rented a small two-bedroom house on the edge of town. It wasn't perfect. Old, creaky floors, thin walls, and a basement that always smelled faintly of rust. But the rent was cheap, and I liked being on my own. The first few weeks were quiet. I worked late, came home, made dinner, and watched TV until I fell asleep. Everything felt normal. Until one night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound that didn't belong. 3 slow knocks. They came from somewhere below me. At first I thought I was dreaming. The house was old. Maybe it was just the pipes or the wind. But then it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, it was clearer, heavier, like someone was knocking on a door beneath the floor. I got out of bed, my heart pounding, and walked to the top of the basement stairs. Everything was dark. I flipped the light switch, but the bulb didn't turn on. The knocking stopped. I stood there, staring into the blackness below, waiting for any sound. Then, just before I turned away, something whispered back up the stairs, low, breathy, and close enough to hear clearly. "I know you're awake." I didn't sleep at all after that whisper. I just sat on my bed with the lights on until sunrise, trying to convince myself I imagined it. The next morning, I went down to check the basement. The air felt colder as I descended the stairs. Dust floated in the light from the single bulb hanging overhead. The concrete floor was cracked and old boxes lined the corners. Nothing seemed out of place. Still, I couldn't shake that uneasy feeling. The basement door at the far end was old, thick wood, metal hinges, and a rusty padlock that hung open. I didn't remember ever unlocking it. I tried pulling it shut, but it wouldn't close all the way, like something on the other side was wedged against it. I left it alone and went back upstairs, trying not to think about it. That night, the knocking came again. 3 knocks. Always 3. I tried blasting the TV to drown it out, but it didn't help. The sound came up through the floor, deep, deliberate, like someone was waiting for me to answer. I called my landlord the next morning and told him about the noises. He just laughed. "Old houses make sounds, kid. It's probably air pressure, or pipes." But that didn't explain the whisper. By the 4th night, I was barely sleeping. Every knock echoed through my head. I tried recording the sound on my phone, but every time I hit record, the knocking stopped. Then came the scratching. At around 2:40 a.m., I heard it, a long, slow scrape across the basement floor. It went on for almost a minute, followed by a soft thud. I stood at the top of the stairs, flashlight trembling in my hand. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then, a new sound. Something dragging along the wall, closer to the stairs this time. I shut the door and pushed a chair under the handle. I barely breathed the rest of the night. When morning came, I went down again, just to prove to myself there was nothing there. The air was still cold, but something was different. The basement door, the one with the padlock, was open about an inch. I shined my flashlight through the crack. The beam barely reached the other side, but I could see something. Footprints, bare ones, leading away from the door and across the floor toward the stairs. I backed away slowly, my stomach turning. The prints stopped halfway up the steps, like whoever made them had turned around and gone back down. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and nailed a piece of wood across it for good measure. That night, I slept at a friend's place. I told him what happened. He laughed it off, said I was probably hearing animals. When I came back the next morning, the house smelled different, like damp earth. And when I looked at the basement door, the board I'd nailed across it was lying on the floor. The padlock was gone, and carved into the wood, just below the doorknob, were 3 words, jagged, uneven, written in deep scratches. "Let me out." I just stood there, staring at those words carved into the wood. "Let me out." The letters were rough, uneven, like they'd been dug into the door with a nail or a knife. My first instinct was to run, but my curiosity pinned me to the floor. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe a previous tenant, maybe some sick prank from before I moved in. Still, the air felt heavier now, thick with that same earthy smell I'd noticed before. I went to the kitchen, grabbed a hammer, and pried the door open, ignoring every part of me screaming not to. The hinges groaned as it swung outward. The space beyond wasn't large, maybe a storage room once, but the floor was covered in black dirt, uneven and damp. There were old planks, a few broken glass jars, and in the far corner, a hole. It wasn't deep, maybe 5 feet across and 4 feet down, but it looked freshly dug. The dirt around it was loose, still moist. I knelt closer, shining my flashlight into it, and froze. At the bottom of the hole was a shape, small, pale, curled up on its side. For a second I thought it was a mannequin. Then the hand twitched. I stumbled backward, dropping the light. The beam rolled across the dirt floor, catching something else beside the hole. A tattered blanket, a rusted tin cup, and a small stack of canned food. Whoever, whatever, was down there had been living here. That's when I heard breathing. Not from the hole, from behind me. I turned, and for half a second, I saw someone standing in the doorway. Tall, thin, their skin almost gray in the flashlight's edge. Their eyes looked too wide, like they hadn't seen light in a long time. They smiled, and then they spoke in that same low whisper I'd heard days earlier. "I told you I was awake." I bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind me, my hands shaking so bad I could barely get the lock to click. I grabbed my keys, sprinted out to my car, and drove until the house was miles behind me. I didn't stop until sunrise, when I finally called the police and told them what I'd seen. They sent 2 officers to check the property. They called me later that afternoon. They said the basement door was wide open, and the floor was empty. No hole, no footprints, no sign anyone had ever been there. Just a single phrase scratched into the wall, next to the stairs. "You shouldn't have opened it." I moved out the next day, didn't even pack everything. Left furniture, clothes, half my dishes. I just wanted distance. For weeks after, I kept waiting for a call from the police, saying they'd found something. A person, an animal, anything to explain what I saw. But they never did. The report simply said, no evidence of forced entry or habitation. I tried to forget it. Got a new apartment across town, new job, new routine. But some nights, around the same time, 2 a.m., I'll wake up for no reason at all, and I'll hear it again. 3 slow knocks, not on a wall or a door this time, from beneath the floor. Last week, I went to take out the trash in my new building, and as I walked past the basement door in the hallway, I noticed something carved near the handle. The scratches were faint, like someone had started writing and stopped midway. I leaned closer to read it. The letters were shaky, uneven, but I could still make them out. "Still awake?" I asked the building manager the next morning if anyone had access to the basement. He said it's been sealed shut for years. No key, no reason to go down there. Now every night, I push a chair against my bedroom door before sleeping, because I can't stop thinking. Maybe I didn't bring the haunting with me. Maybe I never left that house at all. You never really think about how thin a window is. Just a few millimeters of glass separating you from the entire outside world. That thought didn't scare me much, until the night someone started leaving notes on mine. It happened 2 winters ago. I had just moved into a small ground floor apartment after a breakup. The building was old, but quiet. The kind of place where the walls carried sound, and every creak reminded you you weren't really alone. My bedroom window faced the parking lot. Nothing special, just a cracked sidewalk, an old lamppost, and a row of cars. At night, the lamp flickered enough to cast a faint glow into my room. One morning, I woke up to find a folded piece of paper stuck between the window and the screen. It wasn't there the night before. The note was short, written in shaky handwriting. "You look peaceful when you sleep." At first, I laughed it off. Maybe some weird neighbor trying to flirt. But as I checked the rest of the windows, my stomach tightened. Every screen was locked tight from the inside. Someone had to pull it open, even just an inch, to slip that note through. That night, I closed the blinds and kept a lamp on. But when I woke up the next morning, there was another note waiting. "You shouldn't hide your face. I remember staring at that second note for a long time, my hands shaking. It wasn't just the message. It was the fact that someone had to be standing outside my window while I slept to leave it there. I checked the locks again. Everything was still secure. The window latch hadn't moved. The screen was still fitted tightly, and there were no footprints outside because the ground was frozen. It didn't make sense. That night, I couldn't relax. I kept glancing at the blinds every few minutes, expecting to see a face staring back. Around midnight, I turned the lamp off, pretending to go to sleep. I waited in the dark, phone in hand, camera ready. Hours passed. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the heater and the occasional car passing in the distance. Then around 3 a.m., I heard a sound, a soft creak, like a shoe scraping on concrete. I sat up, holding my breath. Something brushed the outside of the glass, a faint tap, then another. I slowly lifted my phone toward the window, trying not to make a sound. The tapping stopped. I waited, heart hammering, then pulled the blinds open an inch. No one there. But when I looked down, something small and white was pressed against the glass. Another note. I grabbed it quickly and stepped back under the light. The writing was almost childlike this time, jagged and uneven. You blinked. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I showed the notes to my landlord. He frowned and said he'd install a security light outside the window, maybe even a camera. Probably some punk kid trying to mess with you, he said. That night, I left the lamp on again and kept the blinds open, figuring the extra light might scare whoever it was away. But at exactly 3:04 a.m., the lamp flickered and went out. The power didn't cut, only the light in my room. I reached for my phone, trying to use the flashlight, but the screen stayed black. Then I heard the sound again, faint fingers sliding slowly down the window from top to bottom. I wanted to scream, but the sound died in my throat. After a few seconds, everything went quiet again. The light came back on by itself, and there was another note. This one wasn't stuck between the window and the screen. It was inside, sitting neatly on the nightstand beside my bed. I didn't move for a long time. My chest felt like it was going to cave in. The note said, "Much better." I don't remember the exact moment fear turned into full panic, but that night crossed the line. I grabbed my phone and called the police, voice shaking as I told them someone had broken into my apartment. They arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, calm and skeptical. They checked the locks, the windows, even the vents. Nothing looked tampered with. No footprints in the snow, no pry marks, no fingerprints on the glass. They wrote a short report and told me to get some rest. After they left, I sat in my living room with all the lights on. I couldn't go back into the bedroom. Every time I looked down that hall, I imagined a face waiting in the dark. I must have dozed off sometime after 5 a.m. because I woke to sunlight pouring through the blinds. For a moment, it almost felt normal again, until I noticed something strange on the wall opposite the window. A faint smudge, like something greasy had been pressed there. I walked closer. It wasn't a smudge. It was a handprint, a perfect, full-sized handprint, facing downward, about 7 feet high, as if someone had been standing on my bed, touching the wall above it. I moved out that afternoon, but the notes didn't stop. The first week in my new place, I got one taped to my car window. "You moved. I missed you." I stopped sleeping near windows. I covered them with heavy curtains and even pushed furniture in front of them. But 2 nights later, I woke up again at 3:04 a.m. The clock on my nightstand glowed red in the darkness, and there it was, a faint rustling from the living room. I got up, phone light trembling in my hand, and walked out. The air felt colder, heavier. My heart was beating so loud, it drowned out the sound of my footsteps. On the floor, near the window, lay another folded piece of paper. I stared at it for almost a full minute before I picked it up. The handwriting was different this time, more frantic, uneven, letters almost carved into the paper. "Stop moving the furniture. I can't see you." My phone slipped from my hand. The light hit the window just long enough for me to see it. A face, pale, smiling, pressed against the glass from the outside. inches away. And then it whispered through the crack between the frame and the screen, "I like the new place." I moved again a week later, third time in 4 months. This time, I didn't tell anyone my address. Not friends, not family, not even the leasing office until I signed the paperwork in person. I picked a place on the top floor, far from the street, with windows that didn't open. For a while, things were quiet. No notes, no tapping, no whispering in the dark. I started to believe it was finally over. Then, one morning, I noticed something strange about the sunlight coming through my bedroom window. The glass was clean, too clean, like it had been wiped. When I walked closer, I saw it. A faint smudge right in the center of the glass. A fingertip mark, just one. I told myself it had to be me, maybe from cleaning. But the next morning there were 3 more, all on the outside. That night, I covered the window with a thick blanket and turned the bed to face the opposite wall. I didn't sleep much, but at least it felt safer that way. Until my phone buzzed at 3:04 a.m., a new message. No number, no name, just a single photo. It was my window, blanket pushed aside, and written on the glass in fog were 3 words. "I can see you." Now, I sleep with every light on. And still, every morning when I wake up, there's always a new note, always signed the same way. A small, shaky, smiley face, drawn in dust. When you're home alone, every sound feels louder. The hum of the fridge, the creak of the floor, the tick of the clock. You try to ignore it, tell yourself it's nothing. But one night, for me, it wasn't nothing. It started when my parents went out of town for the weekend. I was 16, old enough to stay home alone, or so I thought. The first night was fine. Movies, snacks, texting friends. But around 11:30 p.m., I started getting phone calls. Unknown number. At first I ignored it, probably a wrong number. But it rang again, and again. The third time, I picked up. No one spoke. I could only hear faint breathing. Slow, steady, too deliberate to be accidental. "Hello?" I said. The line went dead. A few minutes later, it rang again. This time, I didn't say anything. I just listened. The breathing was there again. Then something else. A faint clicking sound, like nails tapping a surface. Then a whisper, so soft I barely caught it. "Nice room." I froze. I looked around, trying to convince myself it was a prank. My friends knew my number. But when I checked the caller ID again, the number wasn't just unknown. It was blank. Completely blank. That's when I heard a noise behind me. The faint creak of my bedroom closet door opening on its own. The sound of that closet door creaking open froze me in place. It was slow, like someone was deliberately pushing it, inch by inch. I could see just a sliver of darkness between the door and the frame. I told myself it had to be the draft. The heater had kicked on a minute ago. Maybe that caused it. I swallowed hard and forced a laugh, trying to calm down. But the air in the room felt heavy. My skin prickled, and the fine hairs on my arms stood straight up. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over a contact to call my mom. When it rang again, same blank screen. I hit answer, holding the phone away from my ear this time. For a few seconds there was only static, then a whisper. Closer this time, clearer. "Don't hang up." My stomach turned. The voice wasn't coming from the phone speaker. It was coming from the other side of the room. I dropped the phone and turned toward the closet. The door was open wider now. The light from the hallway barely reached inside, but I could see just enough. Clothes hanging still, shadows deepening near the floor. No movement. I took one step closer. The phone on the floor lit up again, screen flashing from the incoming call. The vibration echoed against the wood. I picked it up slowly, hands trembling, and answered again. Nothing. Then, the faint sound of my own breathing. Through the phone, like someone was standing next to me, mimicking every inhale and exhale. "Who is this?" I shouted, my voice cracking. The line went dead. I backed away from the closet, slammed the door shut and shoved a chair against the handle. Then I grabbed a kitchen knife and called my friend Tyler. He picked up right away. "Dude, what's going on? You sound freaked out." I told him about the calls, the voice, the closet. He laughed at first, then heard the fear in my voice and promised to come over. 15 minutes later, he was outside. I let him in, shaking, trying to explain everything again. He checked the phone call log. Every incoming number just said, "No ID." He tried calling back, but it went straight to a dead tone. We decided to open the closet together, just to prove nothing was there. He pulled the chair away, counted to 3 and yanked the door open. Empty. Just a few hanging clothes and some boxes. Tyler turned to me with a nervous smile. "See? You're good, man. Probably some creep using a spoofing app or something." We both laughed a little, but neither of us noticed the phone vibrating again on my nightstand until it stopped. When I finally picked it up, there was a new voicemail. I played it on speaker. It was faint, full of static, but underneath, we both heard it. A whisper. "You shouldn't have closed the door." The second that voice finished speaking on the voicemail, we both froze. Tyler's face went pale. He stopped laughing immediately and just stared at the phone. "You recorded that before I even got here," he said quietly. That's what made it worse. The timestamp showed the voicemail had been left at 11:42 p.m., 10 minutes before Tyler even arrived. We replayed it again, slowly. The whisper came right after the static faded, clearer this time. It wasn't just, "You shouldn't have closed the door." There was something else behind it. A faint sound, 3 knocks, coming from inside the closet. We both turned toward it at the same time. The door was still shut, the chair still wedged under the handle, but there was a new sound now. The faint scrape of something dragging across the floor inside. "Man, open it," Tyler said, trying to sound brave. I shook my head. "You heard that voice?" "No way." He grabbed the chair and pulled it aside anyway. I tried to stop him, but before I could, he swung the door open. The light inside the closet flickered once, then went out completely. For a second, all I could see was black. Then something moved. A shadow, quick and wrong, crawling, not walking. Tyler jumped back, hitting the dresser behind him. I slammed the door shut again, pressing all my weight against it. The wood shuddered like something on the other side was pushing back. Then silence. No movement. No sound. Just our breathing filling the room. We didn't speak for almost a minute. Then my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Tyler grabbed it with shaking hands and hit play. This time there was no static, no distortion. Just a calm, steady voice. One that sounded like me. "Why did you lock me in again?" We both stared at each other. My throat went dry. The timestamp said 11:56 p.m. Tyler threw the phone down and ran out the front door. I followed him. We didn't even look back at the house. We called the cops again from his car. They came, searched everything, and said the same thing as before. No signs of entry, no footprints, no damage to the closet. But when we came back inside, one of the officers asked a question that still makes me sick every time I think about it. "Which one of you was hiding in here earlier?" We told him no one. He frowned. "Then why was the inside of the closet door warm?" I didn't sleep in that house again. My parents came home the next morning, and I told them everything. The calls, the voicemails, the sound, the thing in the closet. They didn't know what to say. We packed up and stayed in a hotel for a few nights, while my dad changed all the locks and replaced the doors. For a while, it was quiet. No more calls, no whispers, no scratching sounds in the dark. But a few weeks later, when I went to grab something from storage, I found my old phone in a box of clothes. The screen was cracked, but it still turned on. There was one new voicemail. It had been left 3 days earlier. I hit play, and that same static-filled breath came through the speaker, the one I'd heard in my room. Then, that familiar whisper, "You moved the door again." The message ended with a faint creak, wood shifting, hinges groaning. I deleted the voicemail and threw the phone in the trash, but that night I kept hearing it. The sound of a door slowly opening somewhere in the house. Now, years later, it still happens sometimes, always at the same time. Always 3 knocks, and every single time, no matter where I live or how far I move, I can still hear it. A voice just beyond the door, whispering, "Can I come out now?"